So thank you for, again, my name is Jonathan Liebert. I am the CEO and co-founder of the Colorado Institute for Social Impact. And joining me today is Stacy Burns. And Stacy, I'll turn it over to you.
My name is Stacy Burns. I am the Chief Impact Officer for the Colorado Institute and also one of the co-founders.
So we're going to be tag teaming this presentation today. There's a lot of good information to cover. And basically what we're going to go over is the research from Porter Novelli. They have done a phenomenal job over several years collecting information and data on purpose-driven businesses. So we're happy to see information that comes from them. But specifically, and today we are going to be covering their most recent research that has talked about what businesses need to be covering and what they need to be focusing on during the COVID-19 pandemic and kind of during, but also obviously after. Because what people do today is absolutely going to impact what folks are buying from them in the future. And they need to treat their employees well. They need to treat their communities well. And so we're going to go over the research that they have given to us. But at the same time, Stacy's going to go over some real life examples. You are hearing about some of these businesses every day in the news and on social media, these businesses that are doing things right. You're also hearing about businesses that are doing things incorrectly. And so we're going to talk about that, and we'll have some good solid data to be able to use in all of this. But at the end of the day, this slide's important because really what it tells us is that, you know, the whole mission of the Colorado Institute for Social Impact is to help to get people to create businesses, and this could also include nonprofits, with a higher purpose, which basically means you're mixing purpose and profit together. So making money, but you have a business that has a stronger why to it. And what we're seeing right now in this research and this data is that purpose in business is more important than ever. And again, as we see them responding to the COVID-19 pandemic during the pandemic and afterwards, here's what we're really kind of witnessing right now. There's definitely a stress test going on right now with the resiliency of the human spirit. We're seeing a lot of that happen right now. And this is definitely a true test on how business will respond. And the outcome is the economy. And how can they respond to being shut down? How can they respond by being innovative? How can they respond by being transparent? We're seeing a shift in charity funding, and because of what's happening right now with the money and how everything's kind of coming together from a stock market perspective, but also the way donors are giving funds. They're trying to help alleviate some of these issues, but at the same time, there needs to be, you know, some other things that are going to happen with the money, and there needs to be new ways that people get the funds quicker that are applying this to, you know, stop the pandemic, but also making sure that kind of the frontline workers that are out there battling many different things at this point in time to make sure that they're getting money to go and help them meet their needs. And then we get to this other bullet, which is extremely important. This whole notion of shareholder supremacy is what has really ruled the way of thinking from a business perspective since the 1970s. So we're talking about Milton Friedman, who was an advisor for the Reagan administration, really talked about that the only reason for business, there was only one thing, and that was about making money, period. And that is your duty to the shareholder, your duty to your country, and it was just to make money. And while there are still a lot of businesses that absolutely have this view, it's shifting, and it's shifting at an accelerated pace. And the COVID-19 pandemic is absolutely helping to shift that even faster to this model here, the stakeholder model. This model is taking hold more than ever and quicker than before the pandemic struck. The stakeholder model is unique because it absolutely includes the shareholder. So you still got to make money. You got to make money for the owners. But at the same time, you have to make sure that you're supporting your employees. You have to make sure that you're giving back to your community. You have to make sure that you're taking care of the environment and that you have an ethical supply chain. So there's multiple levels in this model versus just one, which is it's all about the shareholder making money. This one is about, 4 to 5 different pieces of important, information and important stakeholders that are really making sure that the business is going to become successful. You got to have employees that trust you. You got to have consumers that like what you're doing, that stand behind you, not only in terms of the product that you make, but also what you stand for, that they believe in you, that you have a why, a higher purpose, and that is something that's extremely valuable for them as well. So the stake model continues to grow, and what we're seeing with this research is that it's going to grow more during these times of COVID, and it's going to grow more afterwards, and we'll talk about that more today. And then now, more than ever, as I already stated, companies must pursue both purpose and profit. You've got to have both. You can't just have one. You got to do both of these, and just kind of remember, everyone is watching. So on this next slide, we're going to talk just a little bit more about what we're hearing from the folks over at Porter Novelli. And again, as I mentioned, this is a great firm. They do a lot of work throughout the world. They do a lot of business research specifically, but I like this quote from the CEO, which just talks about this survey specifically, and what they were trying to get at is just, really kind of figuring out what's going on in these times of crisis and during the pandemic. What are businesses thinking and feeling? What's some good information that we can get out to businesses? And that's our purpose today, is to give you some good information of again, what you can do today and tomorrow, because again, there's a lot of unrest going on right now, and we want to make sure that people are communicating well. So again, how we act and respond will remain a beacon for how to conduct business into the far future. The lens that we look through today shows that business must act in service to individuals, broader society, and the environment. And this must remain the lens moving forward. And so this is really kind of a nice summary of what we're going to be talking about today, but we're going to give you some specific data about this. So on this next slide that we'll cover, before we kind of dive right into some of the research, I'm going to summarize it just a little bit more for everybody. These are the kind of takeaways for the research and what they're saying and what they've proven. And again, we're seeing more and more articles, we're seeing more and more research support this, but start with why. That's something that we've talked about at the Institute for many years. This is a very famous book that Simon Sinek has written as well, that companies that use purpose as their North Star, that use this to guide them, their decision making, not only will they understand what role they play in society and attract employees and loyal customers, but in times of crisis, it will guide their future decision making, because who knows what the market will do. But if you have a higher purpose other than just making profit, it actually will help instruct you on what the next phases of your business should be and how this should work. But having a why, higher purpose, absolutely is going to help you have and keep good employees. It's also going to get you more customers. We'll talk about that today. Purpose, you must have a strong sense of purpose that helps guide you in all these decisions. And again, as I mentioned earlier, with that why, that purpose, that will help you figure out what your next innovation should be during tough times. If you have a North Star and it can't be just making money, it's got to be something more than that. And again, these two go hand in hand. And we're seeing businesses that are doing both together are being more successful today and in the communities that we have. And again, this is what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the time today. Remember this, everybody's watching. The choices that you make during the pandemic are going to be remembered in the future. So what we've learned from this research is that this is not going to simply be, well, that was during the COVID times and, everybody kind of gets a pass and we're going to go back to normal. The new sense of normal is going to be completely different. And the decisions that businesses make during the pandemic times and after them, because we're still kind of dealing with this stuff, people are paying attention to this. They're watching it. They're watching it on the news. They're watching it on social media. And the research tells us that they are not going to forget anytime soon. So it's really important, and we're going to go over some of the strategies that you as businesses and social impact businesses can have to really make sure that you're doing things the correct way. And again, as I mentioned, Stacy is going to give you some real life examples that we've seen. There's some good people doing some good stuff out there. Innovate, as always. This is what American consumers, as well as their employees, are expecting their businesses to do. This is a tough situation. I've seen a lot of businesses that this is not a fun situation to be in. It's not pleasant. It's a little bit scary, but they have done some interesting and amazing things. They have innovated their way out of potential disaster. You have other businesses that just don't know what to do other than really kind of get scared and potentially go on social media and just kind of talk about all the things that are wrong right now. And so in this case, what we're really looking for and what people that are being successful are innovating. They're changing their business models. They're doing things in a new way. Maybe it's temporary, maybe it's forever, but they're always changing and they're always innovating. And that's kind of a key component to all of this. And then the number one thing that we'll talk about as well, this is one of the top things that is our American customers expect their businesses to do, is to take care of your employees during these times of unrest and during these times of potential sickness, and making sure that people are safe. They want to make sure that their employees are being taken care of. They're taking care of their people. And this should make sense. If you have a company that's going to do good things to take care of their employees, they're going to do good by you, the customer. And so they want to make sure that their employees are being taken care of. So let's go ahead and dive into the research now. So this first slide is going to talk about some of the first research that we're seeing from this. And by the way, you can download this research at the Porter Novelli website. We're going to have this up on our website as well for you to take a look at. But 45% of American consumers, and again, these were folks that were surveyed during the kind of the time when everybody was sitting at home. and COVID was kind of had its grip all over the world. This is when people were at stay-at-home orders. This is when the survey took place. But at this point in time, 45% of American consumers believe that companies can create COVID-19 solutions faster and even better than government. So they're looking to companies for help. They're looking to companies to tell them what they need to do. And this is very interesting. And again, it's not, everybody, but 45% is still a strong number. And it really comes down to what businesses can do. And again, this kind of goes back to the innovative piece. If businesses are innovative, businesses are typically resilient, they're going to come up with some amazing things to get things done. And that could be just keeping their normal business open. That could also mean that they take their business and tweak it. They change it. So they might manufacture masks, or they might manufacture some other type of medical equipment that they might not normally do. We had a lot of distilleries here in our city of Colorado Springs that decided to make hand sanitizer. And so you have these really interesting examples out there. But again, the American consumers and the American public were looking to businesses to think a little bit different, do stuff a little bit more innovative, but at the same time, they believe that businesses can move quicker and solve problems faster. And so again, American consumers are looking to businesses to come up with innovative solutions to some of the problems that we're dealing with. And let's go to the next slide, please.
So when the Institute decided to take its next step during the pandemic, the first thing that we looked at was how do we shift our social media to be supportive during this time, specifically to social impact businesses, but to a lot of different businesses that are doing good. And so you'll see on all of our social media timeline of, that's where these dates become very, very important, of people that were making decisions and people that were changing how they do business or how they supported their community, and pivoting like a really good business does well. And so before Colorado was issued a stay-at-home order, which was March 19th, on March 15th, which I believe was a Saturday, Adventurous Backpack, which is just up the road in Monument, Colorado, announces on social media that until further notice, they will be donating an additional 25 meals per backpack sold to Feeding America's COVID-19 Response Fund. So the beauty of this is that the Adventurous Backpack Company was already set up as a social impact business. They were already partnered with Feeding America. Their current model is to donate 25 meals to Feeding America for every backpack that they sell. They added another 25 4 days before our state had made any decisions, 4 days before our nation was really making any decisions about how to rally around people and make sure that they have support during this time. This is before we were seeing the mass layoffs. And so being able to have that innovation that Jonathan mentioned earlier and really looking forward to how can I be part of the solution for what's coming was a real key takeaway for Adventurous Backpack Company, signing on that early to be part of the solution. Slide.
So let's look at some more of this data that Porter Novelli has given us. Again, as I mentioned before, that the American public and American consumers are looking to companies in times of crisis. So again, during this time, it specifically states here, Americans believe companies need to take a community-first approach, not the shareholder-first approach. And as we said earlier, that's the stakeholder model. The stakeholder model is taking hold more and more every day, and is going to continue to take hold because of what's happening right now in all of our communities. And so they're looking for companies that are making decisions that are in the best interest of the community, that are in the best interest of their employees. And so 95% of American consumers believe that companies have a responsibility to step up and do some type of coronavirus relief. Doesn't necessarily mean to be giving away millions of dollars. We've got some examples of companies that are absolutely doing just that. But you've also got some good examples in here that we'll talk about of companies, again, as I said, that are kind of retooling, repurposing. You heard a great example from the Adventurous Backpack Company. They were already giving back to their community. That was their mission. That was their social purpose because they are a social impact business. They just decided to give more, and they're being transparent about that. But again, right now, people believe that companies must make decisions that are in the interest of the broader community right now. And so again, how can business be used as this force for good? Obviously, jobs are important. Obviously, the economy is very important. But how else can they move and maneuver and innovate and create solutions to multiple issues that keep popping up every week, it seems? And so again, consumers are looking to businesses to make sure that they are taking care of their employees and also taking care of their communities. Next slide.
So a great example of that would be Prana. So we're now looking at a date of March 16th, again, 3 days before Colorado closes, and a day after Adventurous Backpack makes their announcement. You've got Prana stating, for the time being, we need to keep our employees safe. We need to keep our front line healthy. And part of that health is financial health. So not only are we going to close our retail stores, we will continue to do online orders and keep our business running that way. But our retail stores will be closed until further notice so that we can make sure that those employees are taken care of from a health standpoint. But the other thing they did to support them was make sure that they were paid. We understand that this is a large company. They have resources that not all businesses, specifically social impact businesses, are going to have to be able to pay their folks. So don't perceive this as a statement that somehow you needed to pay your employees and keep them on, or you were a bad company. But when you see the proactive measures to make sure that they were doing what they could within their means to take care of those employees and make sure that they were as safe and healthy as possible and could take care of their families during that time, those are the responsible decisions that really started to come forward very early on during the pandemic. The other thing that Prana added in the midst of all this to their social media was, tell us your happy stories. We're all going to see a lot of people struggling. We're all going to see a lot of frustration and perhaps even, mourning the loss of loved ones on our social media. How do we balance that with telling good stories and telling things that are uplifting? And they did yoga online through their social media. They tried to offer a lot of things that would hopefully create balance for anyone, not just their customers, not just their employees, not just their shareholders, but really anyone out there listening that wanted a little extra lift during that time. And they continue to do that now. Next slide, please.
So getting back to some of this data, and again, talking about the making or breaking reputation, this is an important slide. I think it's key to the work that Porter Novelli has really done. 75% feel that how companies act now will impact their perceptions in the future. And I mentioned this early on in the slides, meaning that people are paying attention now, and how businesses act today. And again, during the time where we were in kind of lockdown from a COVID perspective, now that we're ramping things back up, now that we're opening things back up, people are are paying attention. They are keeping an eye on what's going on and what businesses are doing. And so these 3 bullet points are important for business owners to know today. So the actions the company takes today is going to go far beyond, when the time of crisis has subsided. So what you do today is going to have a powerful impact on what happens, in the future. Americans are keeping an eye on which businesses are stepping up and which ones are tripping up. So again, as Stacy mentioned, there's some businesses that are doing some good things in different communities throughout the U.S. And those are the ones that are showing up in the news, quite honestly. Those are the ones that are showing up in social media. Some of it is they are promoting what they're doing themselves, and we'll talk about that as well. But also, you've got a lot of third parties that are promoting the good work that businesses are doing. And again, it doesn't have to be that you keep all your employees. That's just an example. We'll give you some more. But again, the other thing too is this is going to help Americans understand who they want to buy with in the future, and specifically who they might want to go work for. So again, consumers are looking to buy, but at the same time, they might see what a good thing that a business does, or they might see something that they're not impressed with their current employer, and they might jump ship. So everybody's watching there, paying attention to the response. And this is tough, right? There's not necessarily a right answer, but we felt it was important to kind of cover this research because there is some data here that does give you a little bit of information that we'll continue to dive through on the call. Next slide, please.
So our next example is JB Hunt. So March 23rd, this is about a week later. Understanding that the transportation of goods, I'm sure we've all seen the semi-trailers driving around with this logo on it, that would be vital to keeping our nation alive and moving, and what economy we did have still viable. And so less than a week after shelter-in-place orders went out, JB Hunt announced that they would be giving nearly $14 million in bonuses to staff who keep freight moving. And that can be truck drivers, that can be folks in the warehouses. They do, I think they're the second largest in the world in terms of moving products, definitely in the nation. They're also a Fortune 500 company. So to Jonathan's comment earlier and Milton Friedman, they by all means are responsible to those shareholders and making sure that profit is at the forefront. And they made a decision very, very quickly that profit and not taking care of their employees could have a very dire consequence, not only for their company, but for our country. And so seeing them come forward, their president and CEO, John Roberts, has a quote that says, "All of our field level frontline employees and certainly all of our drivers are required in person and have upheld the high standards of our company. Our employees have gone above and beyond the call to action during this crisis. They have kept pace with the evolving supply chain needs of our customers in the face of great uncertainty. These bonuses serve as a token of our appreciation for their service and hard work during these unprecedented times." And so just imagine being an employee and you're a week into this, you have no idea what's coming, but to already know that you're being recognized and appreciated can go a really long way. So next slide, please.
So making or breaking reputation continued. There's some other things to consider. 75% say they'll remember which companies stepped up to provide coronavirus support when this is all over. That is a vast majority of people surveyed. And 73% said that they will remember the companies that made bad decisions during the coronavirus pandemic. And some of what that means by bad decisions, I think it really kind of comes down to communication, being transparent, being authentic. You can't keep all your employees. We gave some examples of some employees that did or paid them more. Not everybody has millions of dollars in the bank, and then that's not what we're saying is success. These are just some really good examples of some companies that, again, as Stacey mentioned, it was within their means to do so. And I think that we're seeing at the local level with also small businesses, they are doing everything they can within their power, within their means to provide those jobs to their people. Or maybe they did lay them off temporarily and they sat down with them. I heard from a lot of business owners that sat in a room with their employees and cried when they talked about laying them off. And hopefully they would be able to bring them back. But they were honest, they were transparent, they had a conversation, and they communicated that. And they also received help from the community because they were putting their message out, because they were explaining their why, because they were talking about how hard it was to let staff go. And so, again, I think that companies that did this wrong were not transparent. They were not authentic. They did not communicate it well. They made a business decision, a bottom line decision, which is important. Don't get me wrong. You have to make sure that you take care of the business, but you also have to take care of the people. The people are your business. And customers will reward you for this in the long run. So that's something to keep an eye on and something to think about. Next slide.
So we're curious, what caught your eye and how do you think it will change moving forward? And when we stop to think about this, I think I know I was inundated every time I got on social media with commentary from a variety of perspectives. And so it's really easy to kind of just take in what you're hearing and assume that other folks have done good research for you. And in some cases, that's very reliable. And in other cases, it's really good to be a conscious consumer. We're a big proponent of that here at the Institute, and we feel that folks looking into the organizations they want to support and understanding why they came forward, how they came forward. We'll talk about kind of the best ways to go about that here shortly. But how did they come forward? What was their tone? What was their approach? And did you even hear anything from them? I think my example for this is really Starbucks, and as they on the behind the scenes very much took care of their employees. I didn't find a lot of discussion publicly around how that was taking place or what they were doing to protect employees, to make sure that they were paid to stay at home. I just happen to have a kiddo that works for them, and so I got some inside scoop, but I didn't see them posting a lot at all. And so some of this really will require for you to dig a little deeper and look into organizations that were doing things during the pandemic, but other things will be in front of you. And so we'll talk in a minute, like I said, about how to vet those. But the piece with this is really understanding that you need to be a consumer that takes that next step. You need to be a business that is okay and comfortable sharing with your consumers and your potential customers why that's important to you and what you're doing to help and support the things going on in your community. Next slide, please.
So this piece of research is very interesting too. When Americans learn of companies' COVID-19 responses, this is what they're more likely to do. And I think that we keep talking about this as well, that trust is more important than ever. That people don't trust you, if they don't trust not only the work that you do, but do they trust your motives? Do they trust what you're saying? It's absolutely important. And so, consistent with these actions to support these purpose-driven companies, Americans are willing to reward them for doing what they think is right. So again, we're seeing trust increase, which means they're more likely to purchase from them, 73%. 63% more willing to go work for them. I mentioned this before. It's about your employees, but it's also about your customers, and it's about your future employees as well. People are going to have a long memory about this, about what companies are doing, which will make them potentially invest in you more. And for your existing customers that you already have there, they're going to be more loyal. And so I think this slide's really important, because what it's telling us is that these individuals are more likely to pay attention to what you're doing, not only now, but also in the future. And so I think what we're going to see is a shift in a lot of consumers as we kind of exit this stuff and transition out of some of this unrest, because they are going to know who they're going to buy from and who they want to go work for. And so again, keep in mind and just always pay attention that people are watching, that they're looking to see what businesses are doing. They're making sure that they're going to purchase from the right companies that are doing things that they believe in, that they believe are the right decisions. And again, this doesn't have to be about politics or party lines. This has to do with, are you doing good things to your employees? And are you taking care of my community? Are you doing more than just trying to get money from me? How are you giving back? How are you providing more value? Next slide. Communication is extremely important, as we've talked about already. And again, how are you getting this information out, and are you being authentic? So 54% are more likely to believe somebody's efforts if they hear it from a third party. Third party in this case can be somebody else that is not affiliated with the company on social media. It could be somebody that is in the news or the media that is covering them. And so there are people that question the sincerity of companies' support efforts. No question. Are they trying to save face? Are they trying to kind of greenwash this a little bit? Those are always concerns. And so 48% do have some questions and concerns about that. 44% believe that companies that are promoting products and services not related to coronavirus efforts are that they look somewhat self-serving or are uncaring. The timing might not be right. They might appear to be tone deaf, and this is absolutely the case. There are some businesses that are thriving in this environment, and there are some people that are trying to take advantage of that. No question about it. You as the consumer will know who you believe is doing this right. And obviously you can do some research on this as well. But again, if you're doing really good things and somebody else other than you picks up that story and tells it, you got 54% of people are more likely to believe that. They're more likely to trust it. Otherwise, there is some high skepticism out there. So don't be shy. Don't be afraid to tell people about the work that you're doing. And again, you're not doing it to brag. You're doing it because it's your purpose. You're doing it because it's your why. You're doing it because it's your reason. And if you're being authentic about that, people will help you carry the torch. They will help you carry your story forward and make sure that they're helping to promote you, to give this information to other consumers, and to help spread the word. And so again, through all of this, it's important that you are authentic, and it's important that you are transparent. But please, please, please communicate the good things that you're doing. It's okay to talk about this. People are looking for it right now, and they're going to be looking for it in the future as well. Next slide.
So at the Institute, we took the fact that we were one of those third parties very seriously. And when we started posting and promoting the good things that were happening, we very purposely stayed local for a period of time, because we know a lot of the folks that are doing these good works, and we have done business with them for years. And so we knew that we could stand behind that sharing of information. But there was just too much good happening in the world to not want to put that out there. And so we made sure that when we looked for resources, if something was posted from a primary source, that we were looking for a secondary source as well. And so when we would find articles from Business Insider or from Fast Company or from Inc., we would feel like those are legitimate periodicals that we could trust and know that they had done their background research as well. We also look to our partners, and so we work with an organization out of Denver called Be Civic, and they were highlighting a lot of their members that were doing really great things in the community. And so we partnered with them to create a list of folks that we could share and really promote and expand the amount of people that were seeing the good things that were happening in Colorado Springs, in Colorado, and across the nation. And so we were very diligent about how we went about sharing that information. And we hope that it provided some good resources for folks to know who they could get on board with during this time. So next slide, please.
So employees are looking to their employers to do good things. And I mentioned this earlier as well, but I think this is absolutely important. The people that were surveyed in the April timeframe, it was really about 63% thought their company is doing a good job to support the community during the pandemic. It'd be interesting to get more information kind of after this is all done to see where they thought about their employees. But this is a pretty high number as we kind of look at the number of people that thought that their employees were stepping up and doing the right thing and helping to kind of navigate this. And again, communicating with them, creating new policies, making sure they were taking care of them. And the employees are the employees that really felt that their employers were doing good work. You saw increased loyalty, pride, and inspiration that they had in the job. So very, very positive things. If you're doing good things for the right reasons, again, you're going to help the consumers out there understand that you're a good company. They should purchase from you. But again, you've got your employees that felt valued, that felt like the businesses were taking care of them. And then on the other hand, you've got 42% of folks that are out there. I think the company should have acted faster to put these new programs into place and should have had a better response to the pandemic. What that is and what that looks like, not quite 100% sure, but at the same time is probably a little bit different depending on which organization you went into based on what they could do. But overall, we did see a lot of businesses just stepping up in general to do what they felt was right, to do what they felt would be helpful. This is something that from a leadership perspective, none of us have ever been in before, right? So we're kind of all in the same boat. There's not really a mentor you can go to talk to and figure this one out. This is, you got to step up and be a leader and do what you think is right and be a leader. And we did have a lot of good businesses that were doing this, not only in our own community, but also throughout the nation. And so it was kind of nice to see that a lot of Americans did feel that their employers were doing some good things. Next slide.
So this was one of my favorite companies that we got to share. It was widely shared, so this probably isn't new to a lot of folks, but exactly 1 week after Colorado's stay-at-home orders, you have Texas Roadhouse CEO Kent Taylor giving up 1 year's salary as well as his bonus to pay their hourly frontline workers. And there were differing amounts of what that could be. I think he had made just over $1 million in 2018, and it was 14 million in 2017. So which number did they use? But regardless, for a CEO to come forward in this way and say, you know what, I can take a back seat for a minute, that's an incredibly strong statement. And I absolutely love his quote that we embedded here, which is, I've always said we are a people-first company that just happens to serve steaks. Giving up my salary is the least I could do to show my commitment to that belief, and this is my family. The authenticity of that, and for lack of a better term, putting your money where your mouth is something that you can't fake. If he's taking a salary on the side, I mean, people would know, employees would know. And so this is something where folks really coming forward, values first, can make a very, very strong statement to the community that they're accustomed to serving, and even to the folks that weren't current customers. But to his employees, Mr. Taylor has continued to support them. He sends out newsletters regularly to let them know, hey, stick with it. I think you're doing a great job, and trying to be uplifting. And he's also made several pivots. The to-go order line item on their financials actually increased 575% during this period, which is incredible because he was able to be innovative and thought outside the box of how they can continue to keep their doors open during the pandemic. And so they were doing things like ready to grill, do-it-yourself steaks. So you're not sitting in their restaurant, but you're enjoying one of their steaks from the comfort of your home. And they actually continued to do nonprofit fundraisers during this time. I'm sure you've seen your school partner with them, other nonprofits in town. And I know I saw one here that was in the heart of the shutdown, and they were still giving money away to support nonprofits in our community. So this is a great organization that truly is living their purpose. Next slide, please.
So right now, this is where Americans are kind of giving credit to industries, and these are industries that they feel are doing a good job. And this is just kind of interesting. This is just more of, I threw this in here just because I thought it was, kind of strange to see some of these things that were up here, and some of these make perfect sense. But right now, at 52%, Americans are giving credit to health and wellness workers to really make sure that they're, giving them good credit, good props of dealing with the situation. Second place goes to the food and beverage services. Some of that is because they were told what to do, right? Let's be honest. But at the same time, people did appreciate the hardships that this food and beverage industry went through. People felt for them. People bought more. They showed up. They wanted to support them, specifically small local businesses. They knew that they were going to be decimated, and they knew that they were trying because they were out there telling their stories and having other people share their stories, and people showed up, whether that was buying food or maybe even buying just gift cards. Then you've got pharmaceuticals, retail, manufacturing, media and broadcasting. Unfortunately, travel, transportation, hospitality down there in the 10% kind of line item, which is a bummer for them. But this just kind of gives you just a little bit of a snapshot of where kind of the sentiments of the American consumers and public were at in terms of which businesses and which industries they thought were really trying to figure out who was getting some good credit and who was worthy of that credit because of the things that they were trying to do and what they were trying to, and how they're trying to be innovative and keep people safe. Next slide.
So on the same day that a national chain CEO for Texas Roadhouse announces that he's going to give up his salary for a year, you see a local chef doing what he can to make a difference in his community. And so Chef Eric here in Colorado Springs that works or owns the Red Gravy restaurant, he decided that although his business was hurting, obviously, with the stay-at-home order, and that he was not going to be able to have the same revenue that he probably planned for at the end of first quarter, that he could do something to not only increase his business and the likelihood that people would support his business by being customers and taking home meals, but also be able to support frontline workers. And so those top two industries from the previous page, our healthcare workers and our restaurant workers, you see them even stepping up to help each other. And if you check out the Facebook page dedicated to this effort, Meals to Heal, Feeding the Front Line, there are these beautiful photos of them dropping off this van full of food to healthcare workers that oftentimes don't have time to get a meal. They don't have the resources to buy a meal. And I've even seen where the vending machines that were a go-to for a lot of folks that are grabbing something quick sat empty because their vendors could not get in to refill those. And so to provide a warm meal and to make sure that those folks are being fed drew our community to it. And Chef Eric had a lot of support where folks could go get an amazing take-home pizza or lasagna or butternut squash ravioli, and they got to feed their family for an evening, knowing that they also got to feed a healthcare worker at the same time. And so great examples of how innovation and pivots can really support even more than just the business that exists. It really can rise up and support the community as well. Next slide, please.
So getting back to to the data, and this is absolutely important for business owners and even consumers right now. What should your company be focusing on? And I will start with this part. I have not given you the top three. We'll cover those next. So I'm starting with kind of the bottom piece of this. And again, there's still some stuff that has some pretty impressive numbers. 65% believe that you as a business owner, that what they're looking for businesses should temporarily eliminate fees or barriers to access their service. 56% believe that using somebody's building or equipment and their employee time to go and help aid in some type of relief effort was important to them. 54% thought that donating money to relief efforts was important. I wanna focus on this one for a minute because that is not number one. And so for a lot of small businesses that may be listening, it's, well, that's great that these big companies could give millions of dollars away. That's not what you need to be doing. If you can do it, absolutely, it's important. Don't get us wrong. That's why we covered them, because again, this was within their means to do, but it was not the number one thing that American consumers were looking for. This was important. 54%, still the majority, thought that they could just donate straight cash to relief efforts and help out nonprofits. So it is definitely up there. But I think for small businesses and folks that don't have a lot of cash to give away, it's important that this is not number one. Again, I'll cover that here in a moment. 38% that providing information, or opportunities like online classes that helped people to take care of themselves and stay healthy was important. 38% that said using advertising and marketing resources to help communicate those public health information. So if you had a big kind of soapbox and you were using that to relay good information to people, absolutely go for it. And then 19% said that conducting business as usual was what they were looking for. And so again, I think this is important. If it was profit first, make your business go as you normally would. It's all about making that money. Then just do things as normal. That is not what the American public was looking for. Not only 19% thought that was the case. Everybody else really kind of knew that you had to innovate, you had to pivot, you had to do things different, you had to be transparent, authentic, you had to over communicate. That's what we saw. So again, these are some specific examples of what you in your company could be focusing on and paying attention to make sure that you are doing kind of the right things according to this research, to really make sure that you're communicating your message and doing what you should be that is compelling to the American public and also to your employees. And here on this next slide, we are going to cover the top three things that are most important, that are going to kind of give us a good information. But before we get to that, Stacy, turn it back over to you.
So just an example of how companies were looking to pivot and be impactful during this time. Be Good to People is an organization out of Eagle, Colorado. And so they put this message on everything. I have a t-shirt that has it. I have a water bottle that has it. They founded themselves on supporting initiatives that are spreading kindness around the world and in specific communities. And so the Be Good to People logo is something that has been around for quite some time. And what they saw was, as a textile company, their pivot could be, let's put this on a mask. Let's give somebody not only the ability to keep themselves safe from a health standpoint, but continue to spread an uplifting message. And so I know I've been wearing mine around town, and I've seen a couple of others, but you saw a lot of organizations really shift to, how do I do something to support the needs across our nation right now and still not expand outside of something that's going to stretch my company and break it. And so Be Good to People came up with this mask option on the heels of companies like Gap and Under Armour and Carhartt, that were shifting their textile operations from making you an outdoor jacket or that next cute shirt that you were going to buy, to being able to have surgery gowns, or to be able to have a mask that you can trade out, and you're not just having one per shift as a healthcare professional. And so it was really, really encouraging and impactful to see these organizations do what they do best, but acknowledge that what is needed in that moment in time is for them to do what they do best in a different way. And so, a really neat way to pivot and look at things a little bit differently. Other examples are Tesla and Dyson making ventilators. You've got other folks that got innovative in other ways. So, just know that it doesn't have to be a drastic pivot to align with what the needs of what's going on around you could be, but it can be incredibly meaningful to make that small pivot. So, next slide, please.
And this is a great kind of lead into our number one thing you as a company should be focusing on. And we have a three-way tie here. Three different things, all at 68%. So these are the areas of most importance that the research is telling us from the American public of what businesses should be focusing on. So number one, and again, three-way tie, so they're all number one, but number one, we've got ensuring that their own employees continue to receive money and benefits when you can, if you can. And again, if you can't, people absolutely understand that, but it's all about how did you communicate that? How did you tell that story? And you got to just make sure that you're watching out for the welfare of your people. So this is interesting, right? These are businesses, and people are saying, well, rather than making products so that I can buy them and be safe in my home while I'm quarantining, no, you businesses need to make sure you're taking care of your people too. And obviously, this is pretty straightforward, right? We all work for companies. We all work for these organizations. So we want to make sure that we're taking care of them. The businesses are taking care of them, whether they're taking care of you or they're taking care of another family member that works for them. People wanted to make sure that businesses were doing what they could to take care of their people. This is important. So that's with money and benefit. The other tied for number one, first place, is implementing policies to protect the health and safety of their own employees. Because again, if that business is taking care of their employees, they're probably going to be doing a really good job of taking care of you when you enter the store or purchase things from them. So again, taking care of the people that work there was one of the number one priorities of Americans throughout this whole kind of this crisis that we're kind of working through still today. And then the third place kind of tied for first is 68% believe that donating product or services to relief efforts was absolutely important. So again, going back to this primarily for small businesses' sake, you didn't have to give money. That was on the list. That was 54%, but it was not the number one reason. So you as a business, and many businesses we saw did this, they would donate time. They would donate their social media platforms. They were posting things online in their own time to really make sure that information was getting across to people. Or as Stacy just mentioned and gave you some good examples, they might not go and buy products that were needed to give them away, but they were figuring out how to make them. And they were shifting their operations temporarily to make these things for people. Or they were volunteering with people that were making them and giving them their time to help them manufacture them or whatever. So there's lots of different examples and lots of ways to kind of get involved with this, but figuring out what the need in your community is and stepping up and doing something about it. That's really what it kind of comes down to. Was this part of your message? Was this part of your business message? And we saw some businesses that were absolutely social impact businesses that were like, yep, this is what we believe in. We do this every day. Easy pivot. You saw other businesses that didn't necessarily have a social impact message, but created one because they're human and they understand the human condition. They wanted to connect with people and they went out there and started it for the first time. Our recommendation to those businesses is keep doing it. We'll talk more about that. But this is a three-way tie of you as a business owner of what you can be doing. And this is what American consumers are looking for. How are you treating your people? How are you treating them from a health perspective? Can you keep them on? If you can't, we understand. But just be clear and communicate. What happened, and then how can you give that stuff? How can you give things to support the effort, support the movement to do good things to help people out and to support your community? People want to see this. They absolutely want to see it. Next slide. So these are the key takeaways as we wrap up this presentation for today. And this is kind of the takeaways that Stacy and I came up with. I mean, we started out with Porter Novelli's takeaways, the summaries, but from our perspective, sitting here as a third-party organization covering the research from Porter Novelli, this is what we saw from the research. This is what we read into. This is what we believe. Again, now more than ever, it's absolutely more important that you lead with your why. You have to have a why. You've got to have a higher purpose. If you do not have a higher purpose, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to make important decisions, to pivot, and to innovate during these trying times. If you have a higher purpose, other than just making money, then it will help guide you, and it will help guide consumers to you, and it will also help guide future employees to you, because people will want to buy from you and people will want to work for you. The consumers will take care of you if you're doing things for the right reason and if you're being authentic about that, which leads into the next one. Stacy?
So being authentic and transparent, this is one thing that we, as part of our core belief and mission at the Institute, is that transparency is key. And when you have the opportunity to share with a group of people a social return on investment number, or you are able to just share the outputs of your organization, transparency is fantastic, but that level of transparency is not always comfortable. And so even if it's small steps toward being able to share with people what's important to you and making sure that you are letting people know what your values are, becoming a values forward organization. I think it's important to note today, being a National Day of Mourning for George Floyd, that the transparency and authenticity of organizations is going to be even more scrutinized than it was during COVID. And so how do we build on that trust? How do we continue to engage folks in a way that moves businesses forward, but also raises our communities up? So, Jonathan?
And so again, you got to assess what's needed in your community. And again, you want to make sure that it's something that will bring value to your community that you're in. You want to make sure that it fits with what you believe and it's got to make sense for your business. You don't just want to pick something just to pick something. And again, if you're doing that, people will see that you're not being as authentic as you could be. So it's got to make sense. It's got to fit a need for you, and it's got to fit a need for the community. But take a look out there. There's lots of stuff going on right now. There's lots of unrest. There's lots of uncertainty. There's lots of fear. And again, the American public is looking to business to help alleviate some of this fear and to give them some answers. They believe in the enterprising spirit of businesses. They believe in the innovation that comes from businesses. And so businesses are being watched, and they have been for some time. This is a newer trend that we've identified in the last couple of years. So businesses have to step up. And businesses have to keep doing what they believe is right, but also making some tough decisions and putting themselves out there. People want to know where businesses stand. They want to know what those business leaders are thinking, and they want them to be transparent, and they want them to help in their community, not just leave it to nonprofits or to government. This is all hands on deck kind of situation that we're finding ourselves in, whether through these trying times that are going on right now with people asking for more equality in the system and more equity, or whether they were talking about the times during COVID when there were just simply a lot of unknowns and a lot of fear. They're looking to businesses in a lot of ways to give them some information, give them some answers, and help take care of the people that they employ and also the communities that they work in, to serve them, to do more for them, and to give back. Stacy?
And so how can you utilize your company to best support that? And we've given you several examples today of organizations that chose to turn inward and make sure that their employees were taken care of. And you saw other organizations that were able to expand outward and really engage the community in some meaningful ways. And so whatever is authentic, whatever is most aligned, whatever is within your ability to do during these times that are challenging and, to Jonathan's point, scary, it's okay to pause for a second and ask yourself, what is best fit for where I'm at now as an organization? And that's everything from concept to startup to expansion to as we'll talk about here in a second, converting to a business that has a more impactful purpose. So
The next takeaway is a really important one. Over communicate to your employees. You've got to tell them what you're thinking. You have to make sure that they are aware of where you stand. And in this day and age, not taking a stance is basically going to offend everybody. versus taking a stance. We'll tell people where you're at and tell them, what you believe in, and they can make then the decision of whether or not they choose to stand with you. So being honest is a good thing. Being transparent is a good thing. And over communicating. Again, we're not encouraging people to take these political stances. Sadly, in this day and age, many things are being converted into a political stance. We're just telling businesses that it's important for you to figure out what your why is, what your North Star is. And if the answer is, well, to make money, then what we're telling you right now from this research and other research, that's simply not going to be enough. You want to make money and be successful financially, but in order to be successful financially, what we're seeing more and more in this research is you've got to have a higher purpose other than just making money. That is an outcome. That is a byproduct of what you believe in. So much as you saw with the Texas Roadhouse of, they're a family kind of, first company, and they just happen to serve great steaks. That's exactly the example that you want to strive for and to think about. But tell this to your employees. They are your brand ambassadors. Treat them well. They will go out there and sell for you all day long, and tell the message. If they don't know what the message is, they don't know where you stand, you're going to have a conflicted message coming from the people that work for you. And so I think that leads very nicely into the last kind of takeaway that we want to talk about today. And then I'll end with just a thought for everybody. Daisy?
So in terms of that purpose and profit business model, if you thought of something, if you changed something, if you watched others do something that you think would be a good fit for how your business model would work, is that social impact piece sustainable? Is it something that you can look at long term that makes sense for your organization? As Jonathan said, there's a lot of data long before COVID came along that showed that these businesses were starting to have a lot more traction and loyalty with the next generations of consumers. And so take that look, stop and pause a moment and see if that's something that you can commit to long term. And again, it doesn't have to be eating the elephant all in one bite. It can be just a step-by-step assessment of how you can really be part of your community and support your community, in addition to being a really solid business owner or a really solid entrepreneur, and with great ideas and great products and services. So yeah, thanks for listening today, and I'll let Jonathan close us out.
All right, so final slide and kind of final thought. I thought we'd end with this quote that came from the research. And again, you can find this research on the Porter Novelli website. This is the newest one for them. They've got some other really good stuff. So I would take a look at some of the other information that they have out there as well. They do a lot of good research on purpose-driven businesses. And so use purpose as a prism. Although ever more critical now, companies that use purpose as our North Star will better understand the role they play in society. A strong sense of purpose will help guide the decisions of the organization and how it coexists with the global community. The choices we make now will be remembered. What do you want your company legacy to be? And so again, start with the end in mind. What do you want your legacy to be? What's your why? What's your reason for forming that company? And again, it's not about making money. That's important. Don't get me wrong. You got to have a balance between purpose and profit. But people are looking for more. They're asking for more. They want more. And for those companies that can deliver more and can give them that why, that purpose, they will be rewarded with good, loyal employees and also with consumers that will purchase those products for them. So hopefully you got some good information today. There's definitely more research that is in the study. We covered the high points, the salient points that we felt were important for business owners to know, but there's more information out there. So check out the Porter Novelli COVID-19 tracker that is available to you to download on the internet as a PDF file. But hopefully you had some good information today that was helpful. Hopefully you had some nice examples that were provided as well as some of the things that we're seeing during these times. Just remember that people are absolutely paying attention to what you do and do not do. People will remember your actions far into the future. So keep doing good things for your community, for your employees, and for your business. And always remember that we are a resource for you as well. So we're the Colorado Institute for Social Impact. Email us at info@ci4si. That's ci4si.org. Happy to help you. There's more classes that will be coming up. Many of those are free. We also have some certification classes that are coming up as well. So if you have questions for us, feel free to email us. But thanks for listening today, and we hope you have a good rest of your week. Thank you.